accordingly. So if we were just to move on to this slide, so this is now you may or may not have heard this. This is like sort of it's a new approach to coaching. It's the constraints-led approach, and honestly, you're probably doing this already. This is just the scientific jargon of what it is. And so I do believe this is a fantastic starting point to sort of better understand and evaluate how we can provide feedback and just overall coaching, the coaching foundation that we employ. And again, this can also be a full other lecture, but just to hit on this, the essence of this is that, coordination, skill, control of movements or movement output, whatever you want to call it, is usually a combination or a product of the task, the environment, and organism just means your individual athlete, right? And part of this is that, is that task constraint or that feedback and instruction that we talked about. So in the beginning, I mentioned that instruction is a type of constraint. That kind of hits on the task, like the upper triangle portion of this, right? So if I set up the environment where I'm, say, doing a drill and all of a sudden I give them instructions, things will change. Like what they perceive, the information they perceive, what they end up actually doing, that's all going to change. And so that's how we kind of talk about how instruction or feedback is a task constraint there. And I'll give an example, but essentially, that's pretty much this layout of what we can do and what we can utilize. And I think this is a perfect picture to utilize as we plan our practices and plan what we're saying. At the end of the day, I think it's important that learning and performance improves when we provide information about how to perform a task. There's actually substantial evidence to suggest that when learners are informed about how to perform a task, learning can also be degraded. So the question then becomes, what are the most optimal ways to do this? And so I think the example I gave. Yeah. So
in a demo degrades performance.
I think I'll start off like this. I think information, what we provide to our athlete, what verbally or whatever it may be, there's a chance that also may not be beneficial, right? We think about information being beneficial, right? The more I say things, the better it is. It's not, unfortunately, not like that. It's, we want to provide information that's like beneficial to their learning and performance. Now, the goal in question is how do we do that? What are the most optimal ways to do that? And so I'll give you an example of using this sort of constraints-based approach. I'll just provide one example. I gave this example yesterday to a head coach, and they seemed to like it, so I figured I'll share it. So essentially, if you're trying to, let's say, work with your outside hitter, right, and your setter, and the goal is, if you set the ball, or if you set a goal ball, that's, and I might be wrong, but that's more towards the antenna. It's quicker, that's the type of hit that is looking for. But then the coach wants to maybe work on the hitter trying to, sort of come in a little bit more, so the setter doesn't, shoot the ball all the way to the antenna. It's a little, it's about 5 to 10 feet inside. So now you're working on those two things. So now you have a setter that's trying to get the ball to that position, and your hitter is trying to get there. So one of the things I said is that, without telling them what to do, right, you have sort of you have a point system. So the idea is that you get 10 points if you get the ball set to that 10 feet inside sort of set. You get 5 points if you set the ball to all the way to the antenna. Your goal is to get to 50 as quick as possible. So then what happens is they are going to consciously, they're going to try to get that inside set a lot more because they want to get to 50 as fast as possible. This can be done in individuals. This can be done with a hitter, without a hitter. I mean, it's really, you got to be creative with it. But again, you're not telling them exactly what to do. You're not telling them, hey, keep your hands this way, do this. If you're talking to an elite level setter, say, and at the collegiate level setting, there's a time and place to do that, to really instruct them how to set better or whatever it may be. But when it comes to that type of drill design, and providing feedback, sometimes just kind of manipulating the environment in that type of sense, you don't really need to provide that sort of really detailed sort of instruction and feedback that we typically may see. And so that's just an example of utilizing this sort of thing. And we'll get into more examples as we move forward. But
and
I think
I
that's
think to also circle back on the technical versus the system, because you're talking about a point system and trying to achieve something based on, and I like it. I think that's really good. You want to set that ball inside. You got a certain number of points to hit, and you're going to do this until you get to 50. I like that. I think just get that. There's a lot of coaches, myself included, that are watching what's going on, and there are some technical things about the way we want to run the route. There are some technical things about the delivery of the setter. If she brings, just an example, but if she or he sets that ball a little bit inside, sometimes their hands go down a little bit, and then the ball, like, hey, you want to finish and still set that ball so it's on in a good contact zone. Like, there are some technical things that we are really tempted to start talking about. So how do we get that information?
So that's coming up. So that's exactly what that's a thought process that I had was, okay, let me tell you, this is what you can do with your environment, and then let's talk about, how can we do this all better? And so we'll hit on that. We'll hit on that next. But you're right. I think it's important that we do mix. We mix both. That's definitely critical. And so we'll hit on that as we move forward. So here it's. I think it's critical, and to your point, Coach, is to understand that the athlete's training stage. Where are we with that individual athlete? So while the purpose of the presentation is not really this per se, it's important to utilize this information when you provide feedback. So this can be viewed in two ways, this continuum that you see here. One, that a practice session typically goes from coordination training to skill adaptability to performance training. This is like individuals to some sort of maybe light game-like sort of situation to performance training 6-on-6. And typically a practice would maybe go from in sort of order from that beginning of practice to the end of practice, or it can be seen as like a macro cycle where this is your season that you're preparing for. And so that's just another. So by coordination training, we're basically referring to stability and movement, right? So here, athletes are pretty much you're allowing them to explore their movement patterns. So for example, during individuals, a setter is working on getting the ball to the pin quicker, or a blocker is being trained to turn their hand in. I mean, those are the types of things we're looking for here. And I think you mentioned like mindfulness training, right? I think that's important here as well. And so I know we've discussed that a little bit. And skill adaptability then refers to training environments where there is maybe a lot of variable practice. So this is like team-based training, things are a little more chaotic here. Individual repetitions are different. And so that's pretty much what adaptability really means, right? So it's, you're kind of doing that. And then, and so I had another couple of examples written down, just like progression to serve receive, some short court stuff, or like structured 6-on-6, not really like, not really competitive, chaotic, but, some sort of structured play. And then performance training is performance stability. So here it's, are we training them to be stable in their competitive performance or high pressure competition situations? Here, things like confidence of big play, ability to perform under pressure. So this is your full 6-on-6 practice. Or if you structure your week in a sense, so if you have a game on like a Saturday or Friday, this is the activities that you may do towards the end of that week as you prepare for that game. So this is like I think this is a good model. This actually just came out, this type of training methodology this year, and it was a really good paper, which I can share with you as well. But it was literally just broke down everything. What are we doing in these certain situations? Obviously, it was not really related to volleyball, but I think you can still read it and figure it out accordingly. Now, I have the arrows on the side, basically saying that, you can, if we were to think about this as an individual, for example, I can go back to coordination training. I can go back to, hey, the technical aspects of my set, are this. But then I have to progress towards more, adaptability and performance training. So I think this is a good continuum for coaches to use when not only looking at their individual athlete, but their team and obviously their schedule in a sense. So this will set the stage for what we're going to go over next, which is all the feedback sort of stuff. That basically is the crux of this presentation. So do you have any questions so far?
No, I think this is great. Yeah.
Cool.